You're listening to Kentucky Running, presented by John's Run Walk Shop in Lexington. Help others find this show by rating, reviewing, and subscribing in your podcast app. This episode is sponsored by Curex Insoles.
Hey runners, Matt Reno here, hoping you're staying as warm as possible, and I hope you're not getting too crazy having to spend too much time on the treadmill, or the dreadmill, as I call it. I've been working out indoors a lot, going to the Y, weight training, swimming, even getting into pickleball. That's been a lot of fun, but I'm still looking forward to higher temperatures so I can get back out on the roads. But as Pearl Jam says, no matter how cold the winter, there's a springtime ahead, and on today's episode, we're looking forward to warmer weather and enjoying being outdoors. We're talking about a project that's been in the works here in Lexington for a long time, and it's now getting very close to opening up. I'm referring to Gatton Park on the town branch. My guest today is Allison Lankford, Executive Director of the nonprofit that's been spearheading the effort to turn the parking lot behind Rupp Arena into a public park. This is going to be such a great thing for those of us who love running, walking, and just bringing the Lexington community together in a beautiful outdoor space. The park's going to open later this year, and Allison is going to tell us all about the efforts to make this project happen and what we can expect once it opens. Stick around for that. But first, let's hear from our On representative, Daniel Burnett, who's going to tell us about the brand new Cloud Surfer 2. Talking to Daniel Burnett, our representative from On. They are fresh off a Super Bowl ad you might have seen with some familiar faces, Roger Federer and Elmo, hyping up the brand. Daniel, what was your first impression when you saw that ad for the first time?
It was cool, man. It's just Elmo and Roger are people that everybody can relate to. Everybody knows them, so it's cool to see them, helping pushing the product. So it was cool.
Yeah, it was a pretty clever idea to get them making sure people are saying the name of the brand right. Because we do get it a lot. What's that QC or whatever, and we correct them. It's On. I got to hand it to the company. I've never seen a business with so much brand recognition where so many people don't even know the name, but they know that they want the shoe.
Right. No, for sure.
Today we're talking about Cloud Surfer. So tell us some of the key differences between the original Cloud Surfer and this new one.
Yeah, so the two still holds the integrity of like what the one had. We just made a few alterations just to help, improve it. Nothing too big, but a few call outs. There is a little bit more cushioning in the forefoot of the shoe compared to the one, and that's going to help with, addressing kind of that bottom out feeling, the shoe being somewhat hollow. That extra cushion in the forefront just helped bump it up a little bit. There's also heel to toe drop change, so it went from a 8 instead of the previous model being a 10. And then the durometer of the foam, it's just a little bit more rigid compared to the first edition. But a few neat things that we did as well to help address some of that squeaking. We added some ridges within those cavities. That's just going to help with the friction of the shoe. But what we also did was we put a slightly different coating in those cavities to help address like the friction and the moisture buildup there. So all those things contribute to a good new release of the shoe. Yep.
Yeah, I tried it on today. Very comfortable. I enjoyed it. I'm more of a forefoot striker when I run, so I could feel the cushion there. But then when I stopped running, I stood, like sunk into the heels a little bit, and that felt really good.
For sure.
What was the thinking between changing the drop? Why the extra 2 millimeters?
It just adds a little bit more pop to the forefoot. So like changing the drop to make it just like less on the heel, and then adding that cushion in the forefoot. It also helps with how the pressure of the midsole is being distributed. So a lot of that squeaking was kind of coming from that back heel. Adding more cushion to the forefoot helps that foam collapse a little more evenly.
For those who aren't too familiar with the brand, although I feel like there's not a lot, it's a big word-of-mouth brand for us. A lot of people come in asking for it. But how would you describe On to someone who's never heard of the brand before?
I'd say different. Our models and our technology looks a little bit different. Like you could call out the technology by just looking at the midsole, with our products. But I would just say it's a different brand. So always give something different a try.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, definitely. Yeah, it stands out on the shelves. You can spot an On shoe immediately. Not only do they look different, but they feel really good. So, come on into John's and try on the Cloud Surfer too.
Oh, for sure. Come try it out.
Allison, thanks so much for being on Kentucky Running today. And why don't we get people up to speed and talk about the history of the Gatton Park project? Can you tell us what inspired the vision behind it?
Yeah, it's been a long time in the making. So they've talked for a long time about what to do with that space behind Rupp Arena that before we started construction was about a 10-acre parking lot. And I've heard some wild ideas from Lake Lexington to, parks to all kinds of things. But in earnest, in 2013, the city, Lexington Fayette County Urban Government, did an international design competition, really creating a master plan for downtown. And that had a vision for a trail system through the downtown and a signature new park. And so that happened in 2013. And there were conversations, and they tried to kind of get it off the ground. But for various reasons, nothing really came of that too much until 2015, 2016. And at that point in time, Mayor Gray put a task force together to try to reinvigorate that concept. And that task force separated the park project from the Town Branch Commons or the trail system. And so the city took on the trail because we knew we could go after some federal grants to do that. And we incubated a nonprofit that now is the Gatton Park nonprofit to spearhead the park project. And so that's where it got its history. And the nonprofit was created in 2018, and it was incubated at the Community Foundation before that as a fund.
One of the things I love about the project is the connection of the trails. I think that's going to be great for runners and walkers and bikers, but even more exciting that it's all leading toward this big park, which has been a parking lot for a while. So it's great to see this coming into something that everybody can use and everybody can appreciate. And how does the project reconnect the city with its historical roots?
Well, one of the ways, in a number of ways, but Lexington was founded on the Town Branch, which is the body of water, the little creek that runs out Manchester Street. And it also, strangely, already daylit in that parking lot. I haven't gotten a straight answer on why they didn't cover it up, because they covered it up the rest of the city. So when we were founded, they founded it along the banks of the Town Branch. But over time, there was a lot of flooding, and that led to pollution and disease, and just became problematic. And at the time, we didn't really know how to deal with flooding creeks and bodies of water. And so like a lot of cities, we covered ours. The creek currently runs down Vine Street still today, but is so deep that it's really difficult to uncover. But because it already daylights in places in the park, we were able to make that a central feature of the park and restore those stream banks, plant native plants all around it, and really make it a feature. So I think that's one of the most interesting ways it connects to our history, because you will finally be able to appreciate and enjoy the body of water we were founded on 250 years ago.
That's awesome. Tell us about the design team that's behind the park and some of the work they've done in other locations.
Sasaki is our lead design team. They're out of Boston, but they're really an international design firm. They focus on public spaces. So they've done parks and plazas and trails and the like all over the world. We're excited to have them on our team. And then they have a lot of local subcontractors. So we have a lot of folks here locally advising, whether it's on landscaping or, our engineers are here locally. And so they've complemented their team with some local firms that have specific areas of expertise.
Let's talk about some of the public impact and the benefits that this park is going to have. How do you see it benefiting Lexington's residents in terms of recreation, health, community engagement?
One of the most interesting things that's happened in the last few years, I think during COVID, we really had a greater appreciation for our parks and public spaces. And we certainly felt that here at Gatton Park. And so I think while we've always loved our parks and green spaces, I think during COVID, it was really the only way we could find community. And so I think we realized to a greater extent how important those things are to bring us all together. And, if you look at what's going on in the country and whatnot, I think we all are craving spaces that will bring us together. And I think parks do that just about better than anything else. You find yourself sitting at the playground with someone who lives across town and their children go to a different school and you might not otherwise interact with them, but suddenly you're in a conversation. And so I think parks are exceptionally good at that. And I think urban parks in the heart of a downtown do that really well because they're different than a neighborhood park. It's a park for the entire community to come together, and we'll certainly have specific programming related to health and entertainment and art, all kinds of topics that'll bring people from all over Lexington and really beyond together and really around things that they already care about.
What about economic benefits for Lexington? So, for example, how might it attract tourists or support local business?
Green spaces have also historically been a huge economic driver. So if you look at communities who have done this before us and the development that happens in and around those parks, people want to live near green spaces. They want to live near walking trails. They love water bodies. Mm-hmm. And so all of those things really encourage development in and around that space. And in Lexington, as a community that certainly has pressure on its urban service boundary, and it's always a big conversation in our community, and there's different opinions on it. I think one thing we all agree is we have to have more density downtown. We need more people to live downtown. And I think the park will help develop that. Suddenly, folks that have dogs can live near Gatton Park because there's a small dog park and a large dog park. People with children who maybe otherwise didn't see downtown as a place to live, being near the playgrounds and green spaces allows them to maybe think of downtown as a home. And so it really expands those people who think of themselves as living downtown. And it also, we know, causes people to stick downtown or stay longer. So if you're coming down to an event in our downtown Lexington already, which we have great farmers market, there's all the events at Rupp Arena, but we don't have a space that allows people to linger and hang around. And studies have clearly shown that it's that stickiness factor or that lingering in the downtown that leads to more economic development. People stay and they might go to lunch, or they stay and they might like to do some shopping. And so having people stay longer in downtown Lexington also leads to economic development.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. And how is this park going to compare to similar urban parks in places like Nashville, Louisville? Are there any success stories that you've looked to for inspiration?
Absolutely. We talk to our peers in other cities all the time, and for different reasons look at different ones. It might be a particular asset we like in one space. We'll have a stage in Great Lawn that holds about 4,500 people, and so we envision probably 20-ish concerts in that space annually. So we've looked at places like Waterloo Park in Austin that has a similar stage and amphitheater in their park. Clyde Warren in Dallas, it's a similar shaped park. So how they fit their assets in their parks and what they did right and wrong in terms of sizing of those assets based on projected visitors is something we've studied. So we've studied groups all around depending on kind of the assets. And there's a lot of communities that have come before us in doing this. So we're not reinventing the wheel, but we certainly have been able to learn from those. And we're part of some learning networks like the High Line in New York City. They have a network of about 30 projects like ours that are developed and ultimately operated by a nonprofit organization as opposed to Parks and Rec. Mm-hmm. And that's what's intended for Gatton Park. And so all of those peers we regularly dialogue with and get information and best practices from.
How is the park incorporating sustainability into its design?
We still are fleshing out that plan for grand opening and are in talks for a number of things like solar panels might still be to come. But we are trying to, from an operational standpoint, be very thoughtful about visitor and the visitor experience and how we can contribute to the health of our environment and how we operate. Physically transforming 10 acres of asphalt to green space in the heart of downtown obviously has significant benefits on our environment, whether it's combating the heat island effect that happens in downtowns. We're planting over 400 trees in that space.
Nice.
So how it's being built itself, I think, contributes positively to the environment. But I think then our next responsibility is operating it in a sustainable way. And so those policies are being developed currently, but we're always doing it with that lens on, are we being good stewards of the environment? And as a park, we certainly want to do that.
Awesome. Love to hear stuff like that. What have been some of the biggest challenges to get this off the ground?
Well, I think when you look at a project like this and in Lexington's history, outside of the university, I don't think Lexington has taken on a capital campaign of this magnitude. And so I think when we started 10 years ago in earnest, trying to pull this thing together, there were a lot of doubts. People loved the idea, they loved the concept, but there was doubt that we could raise the money. So I think overcoming that initially was a challenge. And about the time we had started building momentum by people really believing that we could do it, then COVID came along. And more than reality, it was fear that that could slow it down. But in reality, as I mentioned before, I think people grew in their appreciation for public spaces. So in the end, I think it helped spur along the conversation about why we needed it, why it mattered. But there's been, design challenges, there's been construction challenges, and I think you just can't do a project like this without expecting that. And I think instead of it ever derailing, sometimes we had to pause and regroup. Sometimes we just had to wait it out. We kept moving forward. And so I think we expect it to have some of that. Not the pandemic, maybe.
Yeah.
But some of the ordinary construction design challenges were expected.
I want to take a quick break to tell you about Kentucky running sponsor Curex insoles, available at John's Run Walk Shop. Whether you're looking for more cushion or arch support when you're running, or just going through your day-to-day activities, Curex Run Pro insoles could be the solution you need. They offer flexible support and shock-absorbing cushioning from heel to toe, helping reduce fatigue, preventing common running injuries, and boosting performance. Dynamic arch support with a deep decoupled heel cup fits, wraps, and locks the heel in place to improve stability, reduce pressure, and provide a perfect fit. Curex Run Pro insoles feature a zero heel drop, providing the best fit in most running shoes with optimized motion for all running foot strikes. And they help manage moisture with a mesh top layer and premium foam cushioning to keep your feet dry and your running shoes fresh. They come in 3 profiles, high, medium, and low, to fit your individual arch type. Next time you're in John's Run Walk Shop, ask us to check out your arches and knee alignment so we can help you find the right pair of Curex Run Pro insoles for you. Learn more at johnsrunwalkshop.com/insoles. Let's talk about where we're at right now. So the park officially broke ground in August 23, is that correct?
That's right.
Yeah, okay. So what stage of construction are we in now?
We are fast and furiously approaching grand opening and on track. So we haven't released a grand opening date yet. We really want to get through the winter and make sure everything stays on track. Things were a little slower in January with all the snow and ice, but actually we were able to make quite a bit of progress even in the later part of January. And so we think we're on track to open in late summer, but probably won't announce the exact date for a couple of months.
That's pretty smart. This weather's been kind of wild lately.
It has been, and could have a rainy spring, and you just never know with construction. So especially when all of it's happening outdoors, we're dependent on the weather. But we really believe no matter what, it'll be late summer this year when we'll open to the public.
That's really exciting. What are some of the unique features of Gatton Park that we can look forward to?
Yeah, so I've mentioned just briefly a couple of them. We have a state-of-the-art stage and kind of back of house with a great lawn that's tiered, so there's not a bad seat in the house for 4,500 people. We have a reading room that on an ordinary day will have comfortable seats and periodicals and books that people can look at there or take with them. A playground that has a space for toddlers and then a little bit older children, and alongside that is a water play area. Quite unique because it'll mimic playing in a stream bed. Mm-hmm. The town branch itself, we won't be encouraging anybody to play in, but the water play area will kind of feel like you're in a creek somewhat. Dog park area that has a space for small dogs and large dogs. And for a lot of your audience who walk and run, we have a loop that goes all the way around the park that is pedestrian only.
Great.
And so it'd be great for runners and walkers. And it's about a quarter mile all the way around. And so that goes around the whole perimeter of the park itself. And a number of other features, but we'll layer on top of that a rich programming and events plan.
That all sounds fantastic. Can't wait. So let's talk about how people can get involved. First of all, what role has community involvement played in shaping the park's development?
It has played a critical role from the very, very beginning. I think the first thing we did when I came on board almost 10 years ago is community engagement. So we started with what do people want in this space? And we took a lot of that information to the designers when they came on board. And so I think to date we've engaged with over 16,000 people who've given their input, and people have so freely shared their thoughts and opinions, and it's shaped every aspect of the park, from the assets themselves and the location and the design, all the way to what we're heavily working on now, which is programming events, what people want to do in the space. Along the way, there's been various opportunities, and it's been invaluable to getting us to where we are today, and we hope to continue that. So once we start publicly talking more about programming and events, we want feedback always. People can follow us on social media. We have an Instagram account and a Facebook account. And that's really where you can see some of the most recent images of construction. We try to do a monthly construction update to folks that we do put out on social media, but you can also sign up for our e-newsletter that comes out once a month, and you can sign up on our website at gattonpark.org. We try to make all that information available, but really social media has more up-to-date pictures on the park as it goes through construction.
I'll put some links in the show notes so that people can stay
Great.
engaged leading up to the opening and then
Yes.
afterwards, so they know what's going on. Finally, how can Lexington residents continue supporting the park?
So the park is being brought to the community, I like to say by the community. So 100% of the funds have been raised. The city is helping us to construct the entrance to the park that crosses some public right-of-way, and so they've been involved in that. But in the interior of the park, it's 100% philanthropy. And so we have finished our capital campaign, which has enabled us to finalize our construction and look to park opening. But the park, to be maintained and sustained over years, is going to continue to take public support. We do have, revenue opportunities because of some of the ticketed events that'll go on. Those will be a revenue stream for us. We'll have food and beverage. But we'll have to have a really robust Friends of the Park. And so we'll look to people not only to give annually, we want to be one of those nonprofits that every year you add to your list and donate to, but we'll have a lot of volunteer opportunities as well. So in terms of volunteering for events, or if you love gardening, helping us in our landscaping, there'll be all kinds of ways once we open that people can volunteer and get involved and help us as well.
And Allison, you've been part of this massive undertaking for such a long time, and you're almost at the finish line. How are you feeling now that the park is so close to opening?
I probably don't sit and appreciate it enough because we're so focused on getting through construction and then just creating incredible experience at park opening. But I guess I'm just thankful. The community has really come along and support this from the beginning. Like any project like this, there's been bumps along the way, and I don't think you undertake something like this without expecting some bumps. But we really couldn't ask for more in terms of the community support behind it, whether it's been financial support or contributing thoughts and ideas. And so I can't wait to see people in the park and hear people in the park. That's what I'm most excited about now is really looking toward 7-8 months from now when we've done all this planning, but what we've been planning for is for people to be there. And so I'm most excited about that.
Really appreciate you coming on the show, and I hope you do get to breathe that sigh of relief and appreciate all the great work you've done later this year.
I appreciate it.
I've been looking forward to seeing this park come to life for a long time, and I'm even more excited after talking to Allison. I appreciate her coming on the show, and if you want to stay informed on Gatton Park updates, I'll include links in the show notes. Thanks for listening. Please share the love, subscribe to Kentucky Running in your podcast app, leave a rating, a review, and tell a friend about it too. For John's Run Walk Shop, I'm Matt Reno, and we'll talk again soon on Kentucky Running.